What's going on, investors? It's AK from Fallible here, and today I want to talk about one of the most influential people in the investment industry. This man has done more for your average investor than anyone else you could think of. Buffett, Dalio, anybody. And the great thing about this guy is that he was always for the people. Normally when you think about Wall Street, you hear all these stories about greed, insider trading, making billions, and then just stunning on people. You just hear a lot of bad stuff. But in this guy's case, he did a hell of a lot of good. And the person I'm talking about is Jack Bogle. And unfortunately, he passed away a few days ago from cancer, but he was 89. He lived a very long and great life. Warren Buffett said if a statue is ever erected to honor the person who has done the most for American investors, the hands down choice should be Jack Bogle. Jack was extremely well respected in the investment community because he was one of the few people who wasn't worried about making every extra dollar for himself. The only thing he was concerned with was about helping the average investor. And the way he did that was by founding Vanguard Group, which is the mutual fund company I'm sure most of you are familiar with because all of us probably have some money in one of their low-cost ETFs. And he's the one who pretty much pioneered the low-cost index investing. As it says right here, these innovations, reviled and ridiculed at first, enabled millions of ordinary Americans to build wealth, to buy a home, pay for college, and retire comfortably. Before Vanguard, the stock market wasn't as accessible. It was way too expensive, and Jack was able to change all that. He started Vanguard in 1974, and you could see a nice little graph here showing the difference between the average Vanguard fund fee versus your average active fund fee. Jack was all about bringing those fees as low as possible to help out your average investor. So by the end of 2018, Vanguard had over $5 trillion in assets. Now with $5 trillion in assets, Bogle could have been one of the richest people in the entire world, like Buffett and Gates status. But he never monetized it like that because his goal was always to provide the most low-cost service he could. So instead of collecting all that money, he just helped millions and millions of investors. And again, this is something so foreign to the investment industry because when you think of financial advisors or portfolio managers, hedge fund managers, they're always out to get their next buck. They're not thinking about the client. So here's a quote from Bogle just 8 weeks ago. They asked if he had any regrets. He said, "No regrets. I'm not a trillionaire like Abby Johnson. She's the Fidelity chairwoman who is supposed to be worth $15.4 billion. I wouldn't even know what to do with a number like that. We have a nice small house. We have shelter when it rains, snows, or is windy. The kids and grandkids are well. I have the Armstrong Foundation, which has now reached a decent size, and I feel like it could do some good for others." So again, this guy, very humble, always focused on other people. Here's another story about what kind of man Jack was. A limo driver once told me about giving Jack Bogle a ride back from a TV interview. They got to talking, and Bogle told him about index funds. Upon arrival, Bogle personally helped the driver fill out the paperwork to open an index fund account on the hood of his car. It's amazing. He's just all about the little guy. Morgan Housel had another great tweet. He said, "This industry is full of people who know what the best route is, but don't do it because you can't make any money at it." Bogle said, "That's fine with me." See, the investment industry is full of misaligned incentives. So take a financial advisor, for example. Now, just recently, the rules changed, which made this problem a little better. But previously, what a financial advisor would do is put you in a product that might not be the best for you or the most low cost, but it's a product that he gets a nice commission on. So huge conflict of interest there. And he does that because that's how he's going to get paid the big bucks. He's not looking out for the client. And it's the same thing with active fund managers. Even if the best thing to do is say sit in cash, they won't do it because they're supposed to be active and trying to gain alpha. And they're going to risk a lot more of your money to do that when they shouldn't, because their incentive structure works that they're only going to get paid above a certain benchmark. And they're not going to hit that benchmark just sitting in cash. So for Bogle to come in and just do everything completely for his clients, it's just really amazing. Here's a few quotes from Bogle. On diversification, don't look for the needle in the haystack, just buy the haystack. By that he means like, why worry about stock picking? Just grab the index. It's lower cost and you're probably going to do a lot better over the long term, unless you're one of the very few professionals that is able to pick stocks properly. On expenses, he said the grim irony of investing is that we investors as a group not only don't get what we pay for, we get precisely what we don't pay for. A lot of times you're paying a financial advisor or a mutual fund manager to do one thing and he's doing another thing, losing you money trying to make sure that his paycheck comes through. On market timing, the idea that a bell rings to signal when investors should get into or out of the market is simply not credible. After nearly 50 years in this business, I don't know of anybody who has done it successfully and consistently. Jack Bogle believes in buying and holding. Now, I'm not going to say timing the market is completely impossible because that's what I do, but the general idea of being patient and sitting and waiting in something, that's extremely important, because where most investors go wrong is they're jumping in and out, chopping themselves up, not sitting in the longer trends. Investing is not nearly as difficult as it looks. Successful investing involves doing a few things right and avoiding serious mistakes. This is another important thing that a lot of investors, including myself, sometimes we forget. We forget how important it is to play defense, because the number one rule of stock market investing is to not lose money. But it's easy to forget that when you're shooting for the moon and trying to run up your account. Greed gets in the way of that defensive play. If you have trouble imagining a 20% loss in the stock market, you shouldn't be in stocks. A lot of people entering the stock market don't have a good relationship with risk. It's something they don't understand it, so when things drop, they get emotional and scared and then do something stupid based on impulse. So then one of the most important things to understand with your trading strategy and in the stock market is the concept of cycles. And when you're studying cycles, you'll see how the market moves like this, and you see what's possible. And once you get that big picture, you'll understand that something like a 20% drawdown is not the end of the world, and it's not something that should make you deviate from your strategy. But without that knowledge, it's pretty tough. Another great quote here is, "Time is your friend, impulse is your enemy." One of the biggest edges you can have in the market is just being patient. There's a Jesse Livermore quote where he talks about the most important thing that he learned was the ability to just sit tight, get into an investment and stick with it. It's the hardest thing to do, and it's also the most important thing to do for long-term returns. Like I was saying before, ride that trend all the way. With all of us in this business so focused on how to increase our returns, it's important to remember someone like John Bogle. I really like this right here. He was a capitalist with a soul. That's what we should all strive to be. And if you like this video, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that bell so you get an email notification for when the next video comes out. We publish a lot of videos all on the market and business. So if you want to see those, subscribe. And in the meantime, stay fallible out there. Bye.